The sun was just beginning to set over Los Angeles, washing the studio lot in a soft gold glow. Jamie Dornan stepped out of the soundstage, his shoulders heavy after 12 hours of filming. The noise of the crew packing up echoed behind him, laughter, shouts, clinking metal. But he wasn't really there anymore. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, expecting another call from his agent, but what he saw instead made him stop in his tracks. A simple message lit up the screen. "Daddy, are you coming home tonight?" He stared at it for a moment, the exhaustion in his face melting into something softer, almost fragile. Fame could wait. Awards, premieres, interviews, all of it could pause. But when one of his daughters needed him, the rest of the world disappeared. He typed back quickly. "Of course I am. Always." People often saw Jamie Dornan as the Hollywood leading man, confident, charming, effortlessly composed. But away from the red carpets and flashing cameras, he was something entirely different. A husband, a father, and a man who still tried to make pancakes on Sunday mornings without burning them. He laughed about it sometimes in interviews. "I'm not the most graceful cook, but those were the moments that defined him. Not the films, not the fame. Just the quiet, ordinary memories." Friends said that no matter how busy he was, Jamie would always find his way home. During the Belfast press tour, he'd take red-eye flights just to wake up in time to walk his daughters to school. On long shoots abroad, he'd set alarms to FaceTime at breakfast, even if it meant staying awake through entire nights. "You learn quickly what matters," he once told a reporter. "The applause is nice, but their laughter, that's everything." It hadn't always been easy. When Jamie first became a father, his career was at its most demanding. He was constantly on planes, constantly under pressure. The tabloids wanted stories. The industry wanted the next big hit. There were times when he'd come home after weeks away, only to realize he'd missed another milestone, a school play, a birthday, a bedtime story. The guilt used to sit heavy on his chest. But something changed after that. He decided that success would never come at the cost of his family. On one occasion, Jamie was scheduled to attend a major Hollywood gala, an event packed with producers, celebrities, and press. But when his eldest daughter told him she had her first music recital that same night, the choice was already made. He skipped the gala. He sat quietly in the back of the small school auditorium, cap pulled low, trying not to draw attention. And when she spotted him in the crowd, her face lit up with pride. Later that night, when Amelia asked him if he regretted missing the event, he smiled and said, "Not a chance. I got the best performance in the world." That story spread quietly among fans, not as a headline, but as a glimpse into who Jamie truly was. He'd always said fame was a strange thing. "It makes you visible to the world," he explained once, "but it can make you invisible to the people who matter most." That was why, even at the height of his success, he kept his private life fiercely protected. No matter how curious the press got, his daughters' names, faces, and lives stayed off the record. "They didn't ask to be part of this," he'd say. "I want them to have a normal childhood." At home, he was just dad, the man who told terrible jokes, who danced like a fool in the kitchen, who read bedtime stories in ridiculous accents until everyone was laughing too hard to sleep. He'd trade the best scripts in Hollywood for just one more night like that. When asked once how he balanced fame and fatherhood, Jamie smiled thoughtfully before answering. "You don't balance it," he said. "You choose what truly matters. And I'll choose them, every single time." Now, standing in the parking lot as the last rays of light faded behind the Hollywood hills, he felt the truth of that more than ever. He glanced once more at the message on his phone, then slipped it back into his pocket. The driver was waiting, but instead of heading to a dinner meeting or another event, Jamie gave a quiet nod and said, "Home, please." As the car pulled away, the lights of Los Angeles glimmered in the rearview mirror, a city that never slept, full of noise, ambition, and illusion. But for Jamie Dornan, the only light that mattered tonight was the one waiting for him in the window of his family's home. Because beyond the fame, beyond the chaos, There was a small world that belonged only to him. A world of bedtime stories, tiny voices, and unconditional love. And in that world, he wasn't the Hollywood star. He was just Dad. Sunday mornings at the Dornan house were never quiet. The smell of pancakes drifted through the kitchen, the sound of laughter echoing down the hall. Jamie stood by the stove, wearing an apron that read, "World's Okayest Chef." His hair was messy, his shirt splattered with batter, and his daughters were sitting at the counter, giggling every time he flipped a pancake that didn't quite land flat. "Don't laugh," he said, pretending to scowl. "That one was intentional." They burst out laughing again, and Amelia shook her head from the doorway, smiling. "You make more of a mess than the kids do," she teased. Jamie grinned. "It's called creative expression." This was the version of Jamie Dornan that few ever saw, not the suave leading man on magazine covers, but the father who turned ordinary moments into memories. Here, there were no scripts, no cameras, no expectations. Just warmth, chaos, and love. After breakfast, he and Amelia took the girls out for a bike ride along the coast. The sky stretched wide and blue over Belfast, the ocean breeze carrying their laughter across the path. Jamie pedaled slowly behind them, watching as their hair whipped in the wind, their tiny voices calling back to him. "Daddy, you're too slow." He laughed. "That's because I'm enjoying the view." In that moment, he realized something simple, that no red carpet, no award, no applause could compare to the sight of his children happy and free. Later, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, they stopped by the pier to watch the waves crash against the rocks. His youngest leaned against him, her small hand clutching his. "Daddy, are you famous?" she asked suddenly. Jamie smiled, looking down at her. "Some people think so," he said. "Does that mean you're important?" He paused, considering her question. Then he shook his head. "No, sweetheart. It means I'm lucky, but the most important thing I'll ever be is your dad." She smiled sleepily, and he kissed the top of her head. Back home that evening, after the girls were in bed, Jamie sat in the quiet living room with Amelia. The glow of the fireplace flickered across their faces. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "They adore you," she whispered. He chuckled softly. "I adore them more." Amelia smiled. "You know, people always ask what it's like being married to a movie star. I just tell them, he's not a movie star here. He's the guy who burns pancakes and sings lullabies off-key." He laughed. "Accurate." Then his expression softened. "I used to think success meant being everywhere, working, performing, proving myself. But now, it's this. Being here, in this moment." Amelia nodded. "Fame fades," she said quietly. "But love doesn't." Jamie looked toward the hallway, where faint giggles still drifted from the girls' room. "Exactly," he whispered. He thought back to his own childhood in Northern Ireland, the lessons his parents had taught him about kindness, humility, and presence. He wanted his daughters to grow up with those same values, to know that the world's noise didn't define them. Every birthday, he wrote each of them a letter, something they could read when they were older. In them, he didn't talk about movies or premieres. He wrote about the small things. The first time they rode a bike, the silly jokes they told, the way they lit up every room. "Maybe one day," he said once in an interview, "they'll read those letters and understand that they were the greatest story I ever told." It wasn't a line crafted for headlines, it was truth. The world often painted him as the perfect gentleman, the Hollywood heartthrob. But what truly made Jamie Dornan remarkable was his quiet devotion to being present, to showing up when it mattered, to being human in a world that worshipped perfection. A close friend once said, "Jamie doesn't chase fame. He chases moments." And it was true. Whether it was a rainy afternoon spent building forts out of blankets, or a late-night talk with his wife about nothing and everything, those were the scenes that mattered most. The next morning, Jamie dropped his daughters off at school. As he watched them run through the gates, backpacks bouncing, he felt the same ache in his chest that he always did, a mix of love, pride, and gratitude. Driving away, he passed a billboard with his face on it, advertising his latest film. For a second, he smiled, but then his thoughts drifted back to the giggles, the pancakes, the sleepy hugs. That was his real legacy. When asked later in another interview what success meant to him, he didn't hesitate. "It's not about being the best actor," he said. "It's about being the best version of myself, for them. Beyond fame, beyond everything. I just want to be the kind of father they're proud of." And somewhere in that simple truth, in the messy breakfasts, the bedtime stories, the quiet laughter echoing through his home, Jamie Dornan proved something to the world. That in a place obsessed with fame, the most extraordinary thing a man can be is an ordinary dad.